All right, we're back for another show, the AllStar MMA Pick Show. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Last week we had probably the most viewership on the show, and yeah, man, we can't thank you guys enough for joining us for every event. And this event is coming up is insane. It's fucking crazy. Oh, one thing about YouTube now, I heard that if you cuss at the first like minute or so, like they kind of tag you in that or they flag you, and I noticed that in a previous show that I did, so I just messed up again. Who cares though? I don't care. I'm your host, JHK, and I'm joined by JSpec as well as Adam Martin, man. I appreciate Adam coming on, man. He is a mind, man. He's been around the game for a long time. You guys should go follow him at MMA Adam Martin. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC 285, the return of John Bones Jones. We'll be going through all the fights from bottom to top, making our picks, making our predictions. Throughout the show, we'll be utilizing the AllStar app and its picks option. Go to the descriptions right now and download the app to follow along and make your own picks. I'll be making my picks live on the show, on the air. And yeah, man, follow along. You guys, if you guys download the app, you guys go to the pick section. You could also play against your friends. You could invite your friends, build communities, leagues, win prizes, win contests. So look out for that. Last week, I had my worst week of the year on picks. I went 3-7. Man, last week was not a good week for me, but my total record is 43-26, which is pretty good if I was betting money on every fight, right? JSpec had a better week than me. He was 6-4. His total record for the year is 38-31. So he's turning it around. He's turning it around. Maybe it's like I'm going the opposite way. Maybe I'm going downhill and he's going uphill. Who knows? Who knows, man? With picks in MMA and fighting, you never know what's going to happen, man. That's why I say don't bet too much money on any fight because you don't want to lose your life through gambling, right? But anyways, that's why we want you to use the picks option. You don't lose anything. You just win. All right, so let's jump right into it, man. UFC 285, the first fight on the docket. Let me put the app on the screen. Here we go. And let's get the first fight up here. Boom, 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 boom. All right, here we go. First fight is a lightweight matchup between Loic Radzhabov versus Esteban Ribovics. Now, Loic is 32 years old, 16-4-1 record. He's stepping in on short notice for his UFC debut. He's a PFL veteran, 4-4. He went 4-4 for PFL with one draw. He has wins over Chris Wade and Alex Martinez, 75% finishing rate, 7 KOs, 5 subs. And the last time he fought was 13 months ago. On the flip side, you got Ribovics, 26 years old, 11-0 record, undefeated. He's making his UFC debut. He's a Contender Series winner. He had a first-round knockout last August, 100% finishing rate, 6 KOs, 5 subs, 6 first-round finishes. He has 2 titles. He holds 2 titles in the lightweight division and on the regional scene. And the last time we saw him fight was 7 months ago. Adam, let's go to you first. What do you see in this matchup?
Yeah, it's an interesting fight to kick off the card, right? Like, I even think the original fight with Kirk was kind of an interesting fight. In that fight, Ribovics was actually pretty heavily favored. Now he's an underdog, right? So it's kind of interesting because Loic's stepping up on short notice. But, for me, John, the thing is, like, the experience and the level of competition, like, to me, it's night and day, guys. Like, look who he fought in PFL. He fought, like, all the top guys there. Schulte, right, Manfio. I know his record there wasn't great, but a lot of those fights were really close. Like you said, he beat Chris Wade. Chris Wade's on a roll there. He's been a veteran since 2012. He's has a lot of experience in the sport. Good wrestling, well-rounded. He was actually supposed to be on The Ultimate Fighter the latest season. I think they pulled him off to get him in the UFC in this short notice fight, which is interesting, right? I think he was one of the fighters that because Conor McGregor replaced a few guys, but I'm pretty sure that he was one of the guys that was supposed to be in the show originally, but he's in the UFC now anyways. It works out better for him. Ribovics, like, he looked good on the show. Don't get me wrong. He's a young guy. He's only 26. Obviously got a lot of power. You've seen that throughout his career, but just the level of competition, man. Like, John, if you look at who he's fought, like, can you even really name who those guys are? Like, you can't. The Thomas Paul guy he beat, it was a good win at the time, but that guy, I think he lost his last fight by knockout again. So like looking back, it's not that great of a win. This guy definitely got some potential with the knockout power. He has a puncher's chance. There's no doubt about it. But with Loic, like he's a very durable guy. He's never been finished before. I don't really see it happening here, guys. I think the odds are right. Even with the short notice, I expect him to win the fight. I think he grinds a decision out. Just again, the experience, the level of competition. I think that all that helps him out here, and he gets the job done and wins his UFC debut.
JSpec, what do you got?
Well, I poked around and trying to get any response from people about Ribovics is almost impossible. I want to paraphrase some guests that we had before, and anybody with a undefeated record coming out of Argentina is probably fraudulent. I'll just paraphrase it there. Well, yeah, that's the thing. And on the other side, Radshabov, yeah, Adam's absolutely right. Side note, it's kind of good to see some people keeping the word. Like Dana said, "Oh, I'm gonna take care of the people that got booted out of the Tough House." He was one of these guys like previously mentioned, and I guess Gilbert Burns did a little bit of campaigning for him.
Mhm.
So all's well that ends well. The guy's here, he's getting the action and all that. The fans tight on this one, surprisingly. I think those early first round knockouts getting people excited about Esteban's performance, possibly. So the results: 56% for Loic, 44% for Esteban, and it's a lot closer than I thought it would be. I don't have it that close. I think it's real easy. Loic Radzovic.
Oh, by the way, I was going to mention, like, I love guys from Killcliff FC, right? Formerly Sanford. He's a Killcliff guy. Like you mentioned, Gilbert Burns, one of his training partners. Like, you have Rakhmonov on this card. Like, those guys are winners, man. And Ribovics, like, again, like you said, like, the Argentinian regional scene is not the best, right? There was that guy a couple weeks ago, Francisco Prado. He was undefeated, and he got murked in his debut. He didn't look like he was UFC level at all. This guy's probably got a little bit more potential than that. Like, we obviously have the power, but I can't trust him, guys. There's no way. So I'm with you, Rob. I think we have the same pick. I don't know what John's going to pick, but that's what I have the same pick as you.
Well, I'm just gonna echo a lot of what you guys said. Yeah, man, Radshabov, he's just so experienced, man. The level of competition that he had to go through. Chris Wade, dude, that's a legit dude, and he beat him, right? And they're both grapplers, and dude out grappled Chris Wade. Like, I think that's what's gonna happen in this fight. I think he's gonna go in there, and he knows this. It's his debut. It's short notice. He's just gonna go out there and out grapple this guy, because the only way he's probably gonna win is try to. Esteban's just trying to go out there and take his head off. And if you notice, like, the history of Argentinian fighters, most of them are pretty wild. They do have power, and they're decent strikers, but their record is not very good in the UFC, right? Probably the one fighter that stands out that's from Argentina is Guido Canetti, right? But he's just a wild man, right? He's just an anomaly. I think Loic goes in there, he gets the decision. I'm taking Loic in this one. Decision. Easy, man. I think it's gonna happen. Let's go.
I think Ponzinibbio is also from Argentina, right?
Yeah, Ponzinibbio, but he's a little different, right? He I think he trained in what is it? In Brazil for a long time, you know what I mean? But yeah, you pointed out Ponzinibbio. Yeah, he's very, very good, very good. Yeah. Let's go to the next fight. A bantamweight matchup between Farid Basharat and Damon Blackshear. Basharat, 25 years old, 9-0 record, another undefeated guy. He's making his UFC debut. Contender Series. He won his fight last September via unanimous decision. 67% finishing rate, 1 knockout, 5 subs. He's coming off 6 months of inactivity. Damon Blackshear, 28 years old, 12-4-1 record. His UFC debut was a draw versus Youssef Zalal on short notice. I think 10 days short notice. He's a Bellator vet, former Cage Fury bantamweight champion, 75% finishing rate, 1 knockout, 8 subs, 7 months between fights for him. And he's sitting at the underdog in this fight. Adam, what do you got for this one?
Yeah, I mean, it should be somewhat competitive, I think. I think it's a little bit more competitive than the odds are indicating, to be honest with you. But at the same time, like, it's hard to go against these Basharat guys, right? Him and his brother Javid are they're on a roll, man. Especially his brother. I think he's got a lot of potential. But yeah, Farid looked good at contender. There's no doubt. And you saw the grappling once again. Like, he had a lot of control time in that fight. That's what he's going to look to do here, you'd imagine, against Blackshear, who, did decently well on short notice against Zalal. It was a draw. It was it was a pretty competitive fight. It wasn't like the best performance, but he didn't lose. So that's better than losing, I guess. He was on a little bit of a roll before that. Like, I think the CFFC promotion is actually pretty good. Like, the guys coming from there are not bad at all. He fought in Bellator before as well, so he's got a lot of experience, man. Definitely a decent fighter. I think the odds are a little heavy, John. I know it's not like an odds so per se, but I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, I mean, he has some advantages with like the level of experience too. Like, there's some things that stand out to me with this guy, but at the same time, like I do feel like Fareed's got a little bit more potential, a little bit more upside as the younger fighter as well. And again, like the grappling I saw in that contender series fight against Bagoso was just really dominant here. So I think it'll be competitive, but ultimately I expect to get the job done, probably decision. So I'll go with Basharat. I just can't pick against him and his brother right now. Like they're just both on a roll, and I think picking against them is kind of a bad idea. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
JSpec?
Well, the fans feel a lot like Adam does. He's getting a lot of the rub, if you will, from his brother's success. Obviously, he's already good in his own right. So a lot of people pretty hyped up for this. On the other side, people kind of looking at this as a like second chance prom for Blackshear, getting that draw his first time out. So, people a little bit hopeful for both parties so far that I've talked to. But the poll is not representative of what I just said. The outcome 82% for 82% for Basharat. I mean, landslide of landslides right there for that one. And if you want to get your comments shared on this show, follow me right there. I do polls every Wednesday into Thursday for this show. You guys can get your comment in. The comment I'm going to share is from Zach. That's my only comment. Insanely tough second debut for Damon after his actual debut resulted in a draw. While no bet on this one for me, I hope the monster comes out on top, but Farid most likely gets this one. There you go.
All right. Well, yeah, man. It's hard to go against the Basharat brothers, man. Like these guys are pretty damn good, and they train out in Vegas in that grindhouse at Extreme Couture, and they're training with some insane competition, right? And their partners are just like high level. Like everybody's in the UFC, everybody's in Bellator. Like there's nobody giving him easy rounds, and I feel like him going through that as a young fighter and seeing what his brother can do, I kind of have to go with Basharat in this one, man. If you look at it, both guys hold a lot of submissions, not many KOs. So I'm feeling that this fight will go to the ground, but they'll probably kind of neutralize each other. And on the feet, most likely Basharat will win the exchanges. But I don't think nothing crazy will happen, but who knows, right? So I'm going to take Fareed, and I'm going to go with a decision in this one as well. I don't think we're going to see a finish in the first couple of fights. Let's get to these comments first before we move on to the next one. Sicko Sports podcast: 5 of Fareed's wins have been by rear naked choke. If I'm betting on him for the finish, that's how. I can't disagree with that. Agree with Sicko. Main reason I have no play on this one via that comment is due to my CFFC bias. All right, Zach, we got you, man. Let's get to the next fight. The next fight is in the women's strawweight division. Jessica Penne and Tabitha Ricci, right? This is a fight that was rescheduled. It was canceled late last year due to Penne. Something happened during fight week. I think it was like she got sick or something like that. So nothing too serious. It wasn't an injury or nothing like that. Penne, she's sitting at 40 years old, man. Not many women fighting into their 40s, but she's one of them. 14-6 record, 3-4 in the UFC. Her most recent wins are against Carolina Kologievich and Lupi Godinez. 71% finishing rate, 2 KOs, 8 subs. The last time we saw her in action was 8 months ago. She's sitting at the underdog. Ricci, 28 years old, 7-1 record, 2-1 in the UFC, but asterisk, her only loss was at flyweight against Manon Fiorot, which is on short notice in her debut. So you guys got to kind of give it to her on that one. She has wins over Poliana Viana and Maria Oliveira, 43% finishing rate, 1 KO, 2 subs, 10 months between fights. Before we get to Adam, I'm going to play a short clip from my interview with Ricci. Here we go.
I just keep the same strategic. It's nothing specifically different for me, if something is working for me, I just stick with, it is nothing I can change. Of course, we're just getting better. I think it's just extra time and just giving more time to study more and get better in everything, I don't think that the last game was waste of time, I think it just improving constantly. Yeah, and my coach and my team, they all give me 100%, and I just give 100%. So we in a good connection. Well, I'll be ready for everything. We're mixed martial arts, so my job is to try to master all the techniques and all the styles. So, in the where the fight takes me, I'm getting the opportunity. I see like a short fight. Yeah, I stop at fight.
Adam, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd like her even more than I already did, but after hearing that, it's like, I mean, she's got everything, guys. She's really good, and if she gets a finisher, it would really help her push her stock even higher. I think, because I think she's looked good in the first two fights, right? But she didn't finish the fights. She goes in there and finishes Penne, who's extremely durable, known for her toughness. That would really make a statement here for Tabitha Ricci. I absolutely expect her to win this fight, guys. Like, here's the thing: she's in her prime. She's 28 years old. Jessica Penne is 40 years old. How can you pick a 40-year-old fighter to win against someone in the prime, especially someone like Penne, who is coming off a fight against Dakota where she just got smashed, like took a ton of damage in that fight. Again, very durable. The fact she was able to make it the distance, very impressive, but just didn't look great overall. And she did look good against Carolina. I'll give her that. But the fight with Godinez, like, I don't think a lot of people thought she actually won that fight. It was kind of a gift split decision. Before that, it took off like 4 years due to some issues with the USADA. A lot of respect for Jessica Penne. She's been around forever, man. She's like an OG of women's MMA. Like, I don't think she gets enough respect compared to some of the other women fighters, but there's no way in hell I could pick her here, guys. Like, I like Tabitha a lot. I think she's a really good, improving fighter. And that, John, honestly, I think she hit the nail on the head. Like, she's like, I didn't waste my time in camp. I got better. I'm getting better. I'm improving, getting better in all aspects of MMA. And again, my mind's saying she just takes her down. She said she's going to finish the fight. I'd love to see that, but I feel like she'll just control her on the ground. Like, you look at the first two fights. I'm ignoring that Furo fight, which was short notice and up at 125. Like, and most people are going to lose to Manon anyways. Like, there's not a lot you could take away from that. But the other two fights, 5 takedowns each fight, John, and against Oliveira, almost 7 minutes of control time, and against Vienna, almost 10 minutes of control time. I feel like the same thing happens here. Takedown after takedown, control time, and wins a decision. Although, like I said, it'd be great for her to get a finish. It would really boost up the ranks, I think. But yeah, I absolutely expect Ricci to win this fight.
JSpec, what do you got?
I'm a fan of the older fighters keeping it going and extending their careers when they are matched up properly. This ain't one of those times, man. Also, my memory could be failing me, but I don't think there's been a woman in the UFC getting a win at or above 40. I don't think that's happened. I don't think it's going to happen either. Let me give you the results. The people have spoken pretty clearly. 66% going for Tabitha Ricci. Now, I said a couple of things, but at the end of the day, one of the things that sways me is in John's interview, she talks about her father being a master judoka, judo being my first martial art, and I love it. I also love Tabitha Ricci in this position. She's gonna win, dude. The baby shark thing is cute, but when she's in the octagon, baby's out the door, and it's just a shark. Let's go, Ricci.
Yeah, man, this is an easy pick for me, to be honest with you. Like, it's hard to go, with a 40-year-old, especially when she came back. She didn't even look like she was better than she was when she left, right? She kind of looked like the same fighter. That's it. She just looked like the same fighter. She kind of did the same things that she did, and it advanced her in her career years ago. But now the girls fighting now, the women fighting now, are just so much better, so much more well-rounded. And I just think like time has passed her by, and Ricci is the next generation. She's the next crop of fighters coming into that division that's going to be ranked, that's going to fight the top fighters, and she's still developing, and she has that mindset. I'm going with Ricci. I think she gets the TKO finish. I feel like they're gonna go to the second round. It's gonna go to the ground. I'm gonna go with TKO, man. I'm just gonna put myself out there and and see if it happens or not. But I think Ricci will win, most likely by decision. But who knows? Who knows?
Oh, let me just jump in quickly, like to something Rob said about like oldest female fighters winning. I was just thinking about it too, Rob. I was thinking Holly Holm, but she lost against Vieira last year. Although a lot of people thought she won that fight, still she lost. The only one the only one I see right now is Marion Renault. She beat Sarah McMahon when she was 40, 5 years ago, and then she lost her next 5 fights. That's the only one I could think of, and she was a late bloomer to MMA. So you're right, man. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I don't think it happens here, guys. I'm with you, John. Like, I hate saying like something's an easy pick in MMA because you never want to take it for granted. But like, there's no reason to pick Penne here. There really isn't.
There isn't, man. I completely agree. Now, move on to the next fight. This one I think is one of the most tightly matched fights in on this card. You know what I mean? Like it's just a beautiful matchup right here. Two guys, young guys, early in their career, being matched up with phenomenal skills. A bantamweight bout between Martinez and Cameron Saaiman. Martinez, 26 years old, 10-3 record, 2-1 in the UFC. Wins over Guido Canetti and Brandon Davis, 80% finishing rate. All his finishes are KOs. 5 months between fights. He's sitting at the underdog position. Cameron Saaiman, 22 years old. Whoa, he's a youngster. 7-0 record, undefeated. 1-0 in the UFC. 12-fight win streak. Goes all the way back to his amateur days. Contender Series winner. Debuted win against Steven Kozlow. 3rd round TKO. 86% finishing rate. 5 KOs. 1 sub. And he's returning less than 3 months between fights. Before we get to Adam, I'm going to play an interview clip from both guys. Both guys, man, young and hungry. First one, Mana. Here we
I
go.
haven't been this excited for a matchup in a while. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited for every matchup, but knowing there's a good chance he's going to be down to stand and make it a stand-up affair really just got me going. Of course, with any fight, anybody can turn into a wrestler, and maybe that point in this fight could happen and he could shoot in for a shot, but I definitely see a stand-up, and I guess there's a lot of hype behind him, which I have not paid attention to. And I've mentioned it before. It's no disrespect, but try to worry about myself at the end of the day. I understand that he's undefeated. I understand he's young. You know, all that hype eventually dies out, or it's the hype train can get derailed eventually, you know. I'm expecting a finish, and you know, with Cameron's style, I think the finish will definitely be there. So whether it be with the hands, you know, submission, however I look to finish a fight, I can definitely see a finish, and stylistically, it'll be open for me.
All right, here's Cameron.
Yeah, Mana Martinez is an absolute. He's a great stand-up fighter. I think there is a lot of question marks around his wrestling and ground game. I would say, you know, I was supposed to fight one of the guys that he has fought before in Ronnie Lawrence. So doing my homework on that fight, I was scheduled to take. You know, I saw a lot of holes in his game, but just like I said, I enjoy a good stand-up fight. I want to fight the best guys in the world, and I want to beat them at their best aspects as well. So coming into this fight, I know that he has very good dynamic stand-up. He's also a very patient fighter, very level-headed. He picks his shots very well. But I do think we will have some surprises in the bags when it comes to the stand-up exchanges. We have, you know, 2-3 round finishes, so I would be very happy with at least a 2nd round finish this time.
Adam, who you putting your bags on?
Yeah, the first 3 fights I think I said are going the distance. I don't think this one goes the distance. I think someone gets finished in this fight. Like these guys, just the way they fight, they're going to go to war here. I like both guys, John, but I just think Saaiman's got a lot of potential, man. He's so young, 22. And there's the thing, like when you're that young, you saw with Aaron Blanchard last week. I don't want to compare the two. I'm just saying as far as like age goes, the level of improvement you see from fight to fight can be night and day sometimes. Like I'll get like with her, like when she fought JJ Aldrich last year, like it wasn't impressive at all. And then 2 fights later, she's outstriking Jessica Andrade and finishing her, right? So like the amount of improvement a young fighter can make can be night and day sometimes. The man is still young too. Don't get me wrong. He's only 26. He's not old by any means. But I just think with Saaiman, like I think there is a lot of potential here. I think there's a reason the UFC's putting him here in the spot too. Like Dana White obviously likes him. Like the matchmakers like him. They're giving a fight to win against a guy who is definitely a dangerous guy in Mana. We've seen the knockout power of the regional scene in Fury. And even in the UFC against that Ronnie Lawrence fight was crazy, right? Like he got a few knockdowns in that fight, but he got dropped himself a couple times. You'll saw him get finished on Contender Series the first time he was on it. I like both guys, but I just feel like he's got more holes in his game. And Saaiman, like, he definitely showed some flaws in the ground against Kozlow in his debut, but this is not really a fight where I don't think the grappling presents a lot of danger here for Martinez. It's probably going to be a stand-up fight. And if anything, I think Saaiman probably has the ground game advantage too. So, yeah, man, I think it's going to be a great fight. And hopefully they give out more bonuses in this card because it's one of those big cards. And I think someone here gets a finish. And honestly, John, I think it could be a fight of the night potentially as well. But I got to go with Saaiman, man. I really like this kid. So young, 22 years old, full of potential, tons of finishes. I think he's going to get the job done here, man. I think he finishes Martinez. That's my pick.
JSpec, what the people saying?
Well, people are saying a lot. let's get into some comments first. Trace Pick says this fight was a toss up for me, way closer than the lines indicate. Mana has the fighting upside, and I think we're in for an absolute banger. I think you're right, Trace. Spawn, I'll take Saaiman. Undefeated, has some stoppages, but this appears to be an evenly matched fight. See what we got going on there? It's already a duality thing going on. The poll result, 70% coming in for Cameron. All right, this is pretty interesting. I want to go to John's interviews. They're golden. I'm a big fan, still am. I watch them all. You guys should too, because there's some good nuggets that was shared in there that wasn't in that clip. One, Cameron talking about how much more comfortable he is in this, his second rodeo, if you will, his second UFC fight, how much better he feels than the first time around. You know, we always talk about octagon jitters in the debut and how that's rough. On the other side, Mana, you know, that black eye, you couldn't have missed it. Don't worry, he wasn't getting busted up in camp. It was an accidental headbutt during wrestling. See, these are golden gems brought to you by JHK, and I'm just highlighting them. All right, so go watch them. For me, I gotta give you a little Hawaiian lesson. Mana in native Hawaiian means power, effectiveness, or prestige. In other Polynesian languages, it means storm or thunder. That's power. All right. I know he's not Hawaiian, but I adopted him as one. Let's go, Mana.
Man, I like both guys, man. I think both guys are solid prospects, to be honest with you. And I don't like that this is being matched up like this. But you know, the UFC, man, is kill or be killed, right? And when you look at Cameron, 22 years old, right? He's pretty much what the UFC wanted out of Sage Northcutt. I'm telling you right now. This is what they wanted out of Sage Northcutt. A lot of these young guys, like Chase Hooper, this is what they wanted out of Chase Hooper. These are the guys right here, right? And especially Cameron. And when you look at Cameron and his style is something that hasn't been figured out yet, right? It's like his teammate, Dricus du Plessis. Like he's just it's hard to describe like their fighting style, but they fight kind of similar, right? Manny Martinez, man, if you listen to the interview as well, his last couple of years has been really unstable behind the scenes. Like his original coach died during COVID, right? And then he switched over to Glory MMA and was coached under James Krause. You know what James Krause is into right now, right? And he had to leave Glory MMA, and now he's back in Houston with Bob Perez. All of these are great coaches, but it's just there's a lot of movement, you know what I mean? And he's still winning fights, you know what I mean? Like during that time. And he even told me during the interview that you know, like the fights that he won, he was kind of gun shy. And I feel like in this fight with Bob Perez coaching him, he's not going to be gun shy. So this fight's going to be wild, man. I think both guys are going to get knocked down, and you're going to have to see the grit come out in this fight. It's hard to pick, man. It's a toss up, but I'm going to have to go with Cameron Saaiman, man. I think from what I've seen, and he seems like he's coming from a more stable place, I'm going to go with him. I'm going to go with Cameron Saaiman. I'm saying like this is going to be fight of the night. I think he's going to win by decision. I'm going to go against the finish. I think these guys are tough enough to last out. Before we get to the next matchup at the welterweight division, I'll get to these comments. Anton, let me remove this. Anton Willis, yo, what's up, guys? Always love the channel. First time hopping on the stream. Thanks, Anton, man. I've seen you on the other streams as well, man. Appreciate you commenting. If you guys are watching the stream, leave your picks down below. While we're discussing it, leave your picks. I'll pop them on the screen. Give your analysis. I'll pop it on the screen. And make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, and make sure your picks on the app like I am right now. All right, so let's go to the next matchup. Welterweight division. Ian Machado, Garry versus Kenan Song. Garry, 25 years old, 10-0, undefeated, 3-0 in the UFC, 14-fight win streak. Wins over Gabe Green and Jordan Williams, 60% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 1 sub, and 8 months between fights for him. Kenan Song, 32 years old, 19-6 record, 4-2 in the UFC. Wins over Bobby Nash and Derek Krantz, 84% finishing rate, 9 KOs, 7 subs, and man, he's been away for 2 years. That time flew by, man, and he is sitting at a pretty heavy underdog. Adam, this matchup is interesting in many different ways. What do you see in this one?
I don't think you can go against Ian Garry in this fight, guys. Like, listen, I haven't been like extremely impressed by him. I honestly feel like he's a little overrated, you know, but I also feel like this is the fight where he can kind of break through here. And I think the UFC is giving him a fight where they're like expecting him to get a knockout. Like you said, Song hasn't fought in 2 years since the Max Griffin knockout loss. And overall, I mean, he actually has a winning record in the UFC. He's not a bad fighter, and he's got some knockouts himself. He's been exciting to watch, but I just think Machado's way too technical, man, and I do think he's going to catch him here and probably put him away, guys. So I'll keep this one short and sweet, John. I think there's a reason the odds are so lopsided. You got a young killer here who has not really lived up to the hype here, but he's being given an opponent here who has been finished, coming off a knockout loss, and he's been finished a couple times in his career. This is a good spot for Ian Garry, man. And if he goes out there and just wins another decision like he kind of has been doing, I don't know what to think of him. But if he goes in there and gets that knockout like they expect him to, like I'm expecting him to, it's going to put him in a good spot in the rankings and maybe get him a top 15 opponent. So yeah, Ian Garry's the pick here, and I do think I'm going to finish.
JSpec.
This, I mean, I would want to say it seems like a competitive matchup, but this is old school fight promotion right here. This is a setup. They got one guy that they want a result from, and another guy they expect the result to happen with. All right. Let me give you the results. The poll results by the fans. Another landslide, not even close. 88% for Ian Garry, leaving 12% for Mr. Song. Not very much. I'm gonna read a comment from Andrew. I broke down tape for a couple hours and realized it was pointless. He's better at everything compared to Kenan. With Kenan coming off of a 2-year layoff and being killed cold, I expect Garry to do the same. Kenan beats inferior competition, but loses to superior competition. Well, right there, right? Also, just a little, nugget of information for your brain. Song has 50% of his losses by KO. So remember my sentences a few seconds ago? Yeah, that's basically all I got to say with this. I'm going with Mr. Garry.
When you watch a movie and there's like a rich guy in his big home and he's at this big table in his dining room and his butler comes out and he has that plate on his hand like this and he like reveals the dish for the night. That's what the UFC is doing for Ian Garry, right? Like you've known that for a while now, right? A lot of the matchups, a lot of the guys that he's beaten is pretty much served on a plate to him, right? I just wish he would get away from that. I'm Conor McGregor. I'm the next Conor. I think that's just lame to me. Like just be yourself, man. You're Ian Garry. Like just go with that. You're technical. I think he's probably more technical than Conor McGregor, to be honest with you. He just doesn't have the power that Conor McGregor has. I think that this matchup is served on a platter for him to go out there and be technical and get the knockout. I'm gonna go with Ian Garry. First round knockout, man. I think he's gonna be able to get it because, like JSpec was saying, the dude rushes in and just flares his arms and tries to get a knockout, and in the process gets knocked out by a better striker. And Ian Garry's the better striker. Now, the next matchup, middleweight matchup, right, between Julian Marquez and Marc-Andre Barriault.
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 T is silent. I only know that because I'm Canadian. We had to
exactly. I knew you
learn French growing up.
Yeah. Marquez, 32 years old. Man, he doesn't look 32. He looks way older than 32. 9-3 record, 3-2 in the UFC. He's a Contender Series winner from 2017. Man, he's been around for a second. He has wins over Sam Alvey, Maki Pitolo, and Darren Stewart. 100% finishing rate, 6 knockouts, 3 subs, and 9 months between fights for him. Barriault, 33 years old, 14-6 record, 3-5 in the UFC with 1 no contest. He has wins over Jordan Wright and Abu Azatar, 71% finishing rate, 9 KOs, 1 sub, 6 months between fights, and he's sitting at the favorite. Adam, are you taking your fellow Canadian?
I am, but it's like not a super confident pick. Like I think a lot of the other ones I was pretty confident in leading into this one. The odds are really close for this fight. I think it's like he's favored, but it's not by much, John. I feel like that's kind of accurate, right? Like these guys are kind of similar. Like they both had some nice wins in the UFC, and then they've both obviously been finished a couple times, both coming off a finish defeat. Barriault had that fight with Fluffy where he just got taken down at will and then submitted, and then Marquez got absolutely destroyed by RoboCop. Like that fight, I thought he had a good chance to win that fight, and he got smashed. Like it wasn't even close. The problem I have with Marquez is he barely fights. Like he's had like 1 fight in the last 2 years, basically. Like he fights once a year at this point. A lot of injuries, a lot of health issues. And here's the other thing, guys. Like he does have 3 submission wins, but he has no takedowns landed, which is crazy. So he has submitted a couple of guys, but it's like very opportunistic, right? Like his opponent will make a mistake, or he'll like rock them and then grab their neck. And I don't know if you can like count on that, With Barriault, like he is coming off a submission loss, so there's always that chance. But overall, like I think his takedown defense it's not bad. In the last fight, it didn't look good at all, but overall, it's not terrible. And I think if he keeps it on the feet, he can push this guy against the fence and do some damage there. It's not a confident pick, guys, but I lean slightly towards Barriault. He's another Kill Cliff guy, and love that camp. Although I want to mention that Marquez is at Factory X for this camp, which is interesting because he's training with some good guys like Jacoby and some of the other guys in that camp. So I think that's a good move. Another guy, John, who's another former James Krause guy, right? So all these guys had to move their camps, right? Which is crazy. So we'll see how that plays out for him. Maybe it's a good move. It could be, but can't count on it, man. So Barriault by decision, but it's not confident at all. And I am a betting man, but this is not a fight I want to bet on.
JSpec, what's the people saying?
All right. Well, this one has people going. All right. Fans are lining up and they're picking sides, and it's pretty close. The poll comes in nice and tight, 52% for Julian Marquez.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So pretty good there. Some comments just got from from Fantasy Kings. Powerbar for the win. Spawn, banger alert. Garrett Luden says Marquez has been on auto fade ever since he dropped the ball with Miley. Laugh out loud. And MMA by Milliken says, I think Marquez could pull it out, but I actively root against him for fumbling the ball once again with Queen Miley. So there's some simping going on, but it's okay. It's how it goes. I guess Julian Marquez recently got a new contract that can be good or bad. We see it with other sports athletes. Like when they get the new contract, they kind of like come off the gas a little, if that's a possibility. Fun fact about Julian Marquez, he has more canceled fights in the UFC than he has actually fought in the
crazy.
UFC.
That's a stat right there, man.
There we go. And just on the other side, to keep it fair for Barriault, Gregory Rodriguez is a teammate of his who beat the Cuban Missile Crisis. So maybe there's some like, hey, I know how to beat this guy. All I know is that I'm going with the Canadian, Marc-Andre Barriault.
This fight, man, is interesting. Like you said, it's something that you do not want to bet on. But I'm gonna go with Marc-Andre. The reason why I'm gonna go with Marc-Andre is because when you look at some of his wins, he has a win over Jordan Wright and he has a win over Abu Azatar. And for some reason, I feel like you could put those guys in the same category as Julian Marquez. Like they're kind of like wild in a way. And I see Julian Marquez from my recollection, my memory, as being somewhat wild. And it takes some time to kind of get away from that. And Marc-Andre, I feel like he'll slow it down. And he needs a win, right? He's coming off a loss. He needs a win. He's going to slow it down. And he's going to be able to kind of keep Marquez calm and not get caught with something wild. And I think that's what Marc-Andre is going to do. I think he's going to go in there. I think Marc-Andre is going to win. And I think he's going to get a decision. A lot of decisions in this fight, in my eyes. Let's go to the next one. Women's flyweight fight between Viviane Araujo and Amanda Ribas, right? This is an interesting one, man. Amanda Ribas ranked as a strawweight, but fighting at flyweight now. So I guess she's making the permanent move up to flyweight. Araujo, number 8 in the rankings, 36 years old, not the youngest. 11-4 record, 5-3 in the UFC. She has wins over Andrea Lee, Montana De La Rosa, and Roxanne Modafferi. 64% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 4 subs, 5 months between fights for her. Ribas, 29 years old, 10-3 record, 5-2 in the UFC. She has wins over Verna Jandiroba, Paige Van Zandt, and Randa Marcos. 60% finishing rate, 2 KOs, 4 subs. 10-month layoff for her. She's sitting as the favorite, which is wild to me. Adam, what do you see in this one?
I think it's going to be competitive for sure, but I actually lean towards the underdog here. I'll get an underdog pick here going, guys, with Araujo, because very good takedown defense, 90%, right? And it's over a pretty good sample size now. She's had, checking her, eight fights in the UFC. So she's fought some decent, grapplers, and for the most part is able to keep it upright. And Ribas, that's going to be her path here to get the fight to the ground, because on the feet, like she's not terrible. Don't get me wrong. She's not horrible, but she's not great either. And we've seen her get knocked out by Rodriguez. We've seen her get dropped by Jandiroba a couple of fights ago. So I feel like if she doesn't get the takedown, she could be in trouble here against a really technical kickboxer here in Araujo. And I know she's coming off a loss to Grasso, and it was if you look at the scores, it was kind of lopsided. But watching that fight I thought it was somewhat competitive. They both have a pretty close fight on their record with Chukagian, although I do think that Araujo won that fight. I think the Texas judges they made a mistake in that fight. But yeah, I just feel like, guys, she's the better striker in a fight that's going to stay in the feet, and especially as an underdog here. There's going to be some underdogs that win in this card. I'm going to go with one here. Araujo by decision. Another decision, John, but no, most of the women's fights do go the distance, as we know. I feel like this one will. Both are pretty tough. Araujo, I think, gets the decision on points.
Yeah, it's true. Most of women's fights go to decision. The prop, if it's pretty good, is decision, right? It's not going to be a clean bet. JSpec, what do you got?
First off, I want to shout out Ciryl, a common guest in the fight watch parties that we do for the AllStar. So every UFC event on Twitter, come by the AllStar. We're watching the fights together. And Ciryl is one of those guys. All right, so the poll coming in tight. We had another tight one. 55% though going to Amanda Ribas. So there we go. A comment from Gonzalo. Ribas is a dog. She's tough and good. It's a pretty simple and fair statement, straightforward with it right there. My thing is, when we're talking to fans and trying to get their feel for this fight, it's like what comes up a lot is, oh, Grasso. I do give credit for losing against good opponents. I do. But how much? I don't know. I think people are a little bit playing that up a little bit too much. This one's really, really tough for me. I went back and forth several times, and I landed with a decision, and it is Amanda Ribas.
Araujo's a machine. I look at her, and she's like, she doesn't have much body fat on her. That means she's probably going to be much bigger than Ribas entering this fight. Ribas is coming up from strawweight. And she's just faster too, I think, in the stand-up. I think Ribas, she's kind of labored in her striking, and she's still she's in that development stage. Araujo's not in that stage. She's going to go out there and put hands on her. I think it's going to be speed and power, and that's what we're going to see throughout 3 rounds. And Ribas is going to get lit up. She's going to get lit up. She's going to get tested. She might even get dropped. You know what I mean? And like Adam was saying, her path to victory would be on the ground, but I don't think she's going to be able to put her to the ground, man. Maybe she could get in a scramble and hop on her back or something, but I don't see that happening, man. I think Araujo is going to go in there and handle this one. I think she gets to like a standing TKO finish in this one. I think it's going to go to like round 2. I'm going to make that guess right there. Let's go to the next one. Middleweight clash. This is a big fight right here. Derek Brunson versus Dricus du Plessis. Brunson, number 5 in the rankings, 39 years old, 23-8 record, 14-6 in the UFC. Wins over Darren Till, Kevin Holland, and Edmund Shabazian. 70% finishing rate, 12 KOs, 4 subs, 13-month layoff for him. He is sitting at the underdog. Dricus du Plessis, number 10 in the rankings, 29 years old, 18-2 record. 4-0 in the UFC, 6-fight win streak at the moment. Wins over Darren Till, Brad Tavares, Trevin Giles, 94% finishing rate, 7 KOs, 10 subs, and he's returning in less than 3 months. Before we get to Adam, I'll play my clip of Dricus du Plessis, his interview that he did earlier this month.
I'm probably a 6 out of 10 in terms of what I have done and what I'm now when I get in there. It's just because finding my feet, and every time I'll be better until the 100% still shows up. And one of these days I'm going to have that performance. And once I have it, once I'm that comfortable, that whole division is in trouble. The whole division is in trouble already. But once I start getting that flow state every time and on demand, it's not going to be a good fighter. People are going to fear fighting. And after this fight, I want to already have that. I'm going to install in their mind the whole division is in trouble. Not a lot of them left, and I'm used to that dark place. And I want to prove that once again. I want to be more technical in this fight. And I want to be clinical in this fight. I don't want there to be any doubt at all.
Adam, who's in trouble?
Probably Brunson. I mean, plus he's looked good, man. I mean, listen, the last fight with Till, the second round was not his best round. There's no doubt about that, right? And you thought he could get in trouble, and he comes back and then finishes in the third round. Makes it look easy with that neck crack. 4-0 with the UFC with 3 finishes, and the one decision win against Brad Tavares, who we know is extremely tough. And the fact he was able to win the third round in that fight, it's just weird. Like, he gets tired in the second round, then always comes back in the third round and looks great. So it's kind of weird. The guy's on a nice roll here, guys. He's got power. He's got submissions. He's in the prime of his career right now. He's 29, John. He's right there. He's been on a roll. Tons of momentum. Another thing about the sport is like momentum really helps sometimes, and this guy has a lot of it. Brunson, 40 years old now. Or excuse me, he's 39. I shouldn't say he's 40 yet. He's not yet. 39. Great career in the UFC. You know, been around a long time. Tons of knockouts earlier in his career, and lately, obviously using the ground game. We know his wrestling is good. He does have a path to victory here with the ground game, right? So the question is, can he get Duplessis down and hold him there for 3 rounds? I don't think so. So I got to go with Duplessis by knockout. But there is a path with Brunson with the grappling, because before the Cannonier fight, he was taking down everyone at will, just holding them there. We saw with Colland, Shabazian, Till. Made those fights look pretty easy. I think overall, he's a pretty underrated guy. This is a good test for Duplessis. Really, unlike the Machado fight with Song, where you know who's going to win, like, this is a legit test. Yeah. And if Duplessis passes this test, which I think he will, they're going to shoot him up to a top, I think they'll give him a top 5 opponent potentially, because we know the UFC likes him too. So it's a big fight for both guys, especially for Duplessis though, because he gets this win, puts him right there. I think he'll get the job done here. But again, there is that threat of the wrestling from Brunson that, if you look at the odds, it's a little bit heavy right now. But at the same time, I've never trusted Brunson's chain. He's been knocked out a lot, and I think he gets finished here again, guys. So Duplessis by KO is my pick.
JSpec.
All right. Let me drop some comments here. John Davis says, I believe Super Sadiq is right. If Brunson is blonde at weigh-ins, he wins. I know that's an urban myth I was going around. Somebody else said he looks less blonde and looks more Cisco, if you know the reference. Andrew, I think Dricus wins, but it would not be surprised at all if Brunson pulls it off. Dricus has never faced a wrestler like Brunson, and he continues to leave that chin up in the air. I expect Dricus to power through it, but don't be surprised about an upset. All right. From Trace Picks, Brunson wrestles him in the first and gets knocked. Brunson wrestles him in the first and gets knocked out in the second. And MMA Nice says either Dricus finishes Brunson in round 2 or 3, or Brunson gives him a heavy blanket and takes him all the way to the decision. Last comment. Daddy Noons Forever says Brunson will barely lose the first round. Then I think the takedowns and pressure will be too much. Love watching Duplessis fight, but his gas tank and defensive wrestling are suspect. There we go. Those are the comments. Now, the poll results. 63% coming in for Mr. Duplessis. All right. If you want to do MMA math at home, they've both beaten Darren Till. Take that for what it is. The big thing here, I think, has already been mentioned pretty clearly, is that age gap, right? 39, 29. In this sport, there's a world of difference. But there is another world of difference. Brunson has like 20 UFC fights, and this is going to be Dricus's 5th. So there's like 4 mathematics there. Poor for me. 4 times the experience. Lots of things to consider. But when I was done knocking all these thoughts around in my head, I went with Duplessis. Also, you can learn more about Dricus from that interview. There's a lot of gems he shared in there, and I'm not spoiling any of them.
All right. With Brunson, man, if you look back at his last couple of performances, his wrestling hasn't looked the same as it did like when it was like, when he was fighting like Yoel. Like he was like, his wrestling looks solid. I don't know. Something's missing there with his wrestling. And I think I don't want to say he's fading, but maybe age is catching up to Brunson and the style that he has, where his wrestling's not as effective. His MMA wrestling, at least. Duplessis, man, he's just a wild man. Like, I call his style the hyena style, you know what I mean? Because he's from South Africa. But yeah, he just comes at you like with all limbs, just wild, and he's just ready to maul you. And Derek Brunson used to be that guy, but he's not. He's 39 years old. He has 1 foot out the door. After his last fight, he was talking about retiring, right? He was like, I'm done. Like, I don't know if that was a rash decision, but when you're thinking about retiring and like openly saying that, it's not a good thing in this sport, right? Especially in a sport where someone's sitting across from you that's wanting to kill you, right? So with Duplessis, he's riding the rocket, man, and the UFC sees that, and in the middleweight division they need new blood, and that's why they set him up. Like Brunson's sitting at number 5, du Plessis sitting at number 10. Usually they don't do these types of matchups unless the number 10 guy is someone that they like and they want to get into that region of the world, or they see something in him, right? And they need new blood. They need someone new. I think du Plessis goes in there. This is a solid matchup for him, and I think he gets the TKO finish in the second round. I think the first round is going to be wild. I think it's going to be back and forth, and then du Plessis is going to kick into gear, right? I don't think he's going to have that problem like he did the last fight. He told me that something happened in the second round. Like, it's just like something with his legs, but then third round, it just came back to him, which is crazy to me, like how that happens to a fighter. But this guy, I think he's going to be much more prepared for that. And we'll see what happens with this matchup, but it's a fun one, man. Now the main event for the prelims, a bantamweight bout between Cody Garbrandt and Trevin Jones. Garbrandt sitting at 31 years old, 12-5 record, 7-5 in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight skid. He has wins, or at least decent wins, over Rafael Sunsao and Dominic Cruz. That was in a title fight. 83% finishing rate, all KOs. He has nothing but KOs. 8 months between fights for him. Jones, 32 years old, 13-9 record, 1-3 in the UFC with 1 no contest. He's sitting on 3 straight losses. His wins are over Mario Bautista and team. Well, the no contest was against Valiev, but I consider that a win, man. It was for weed, man. What the hell's wrong with him? 54% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 4 subs, 4 months between fights, and Jones is the underdog. Before we get to Adam, I'm gonna play a clip from the interview that I did with Trevin Jones.
He'll try and bang it out, and he'll try and do what he do. That's Cody, He has that little attitude too. He'll try and land that crack and try and finish me off too. But at the same time, that's 50-50 fight if you're gonna just come out like that. So, considering he has a lot, his checks are way more fat than mine, which means he has to be a lot more smarter than me. If I'm in Cody's shoes, I'm not saying taking down is gonna be easy. It ain't gonna be easy, but I'm sure he's gonna try and take me down. Some reason he's gonna try and take me down. If I fight Cody back like I need to fight, or I'm planning on fighting, I got him. I'm telling you, I got him. If I let anything get in the way of my mind or anything like that make me not do what I want to do to Cody, I can make it a hard fight for myself. We both need this win. My last fight, I wasn't able to do that. So I'm going to try and get it done in this fight just as much as him. Champion or not champion, I'm going to come on and I'm going to fight him. And I think if I can fight to my ability, like, I'm a bad matchup for Cody.
Adam, what do you think?
Should be a good scrap, man. I think someone's getting finished in this fight too. Like, just the way they match up. Like, Garbrandt, he just doesn't fight smart, right? It's like he just goes in there and bangs it out, and doesn't really end well for him. It's crazy, right? Like, if you ask anyone after he beat Cruz, and that was in 2016, that he'd only have 1 win in the next 7 years, or 6 years, would anyone believe that? Like, no one would. And it's the truth, right? And he just keeps getting knocked out. 4 of his last 5 losses are by knockout. Chin's just not there anymore, guys. That move to flyweight didn't work very well for him either. Now back to bantamweight. Just can't trust this guy. And I get it. Like, Jones hasn't looked great lately, but I think if you look at the fights a little closely too, like, it's not like he didn't fight scrubs. He fought Barcelos, who's good. He fought Basharat, who's great. And Kakarov, I know he got cut by the UFC recently, but he's really good, right? And then he beat Batista by knockout as an underdog. And Mario Batista's on a nice roll right now. And then Valiev, he was a huge underdog in his debut and it knocked him out. And like you said, John, test positive for weed. Come on, that's a win. He's also extremely durable. He's very tough to finish. Most of his losses are by like split decision early in his career. Guys, I get Garbrandt's the favorite. He's the popular guy. He's the big name here. But I'm going with Guam's native son for the upside, man. Taking Trevin Jones, man. I think he can catch him and knock him out. I really do. And I think there's a lot of value here in Jones as an underdog, especially with this by knockout prop. If you like betting on the fight, or I don't know if you get on the app, but like it's like 3-1 for a knockout. Like I'll bet against Garbrandt Chin any day here. I think the line should be the other way, probably. Honestly, I get it. I get Garbrandt is favored because he's popular, but I think Jones catches him, guys, and knocks him out. Give me Trevin Jones. Give me Trevin Jones by TKO. I think he gets it done really quick, first round.
JSpec, what you got?
All right, let me share some comments. Andrew coming with, I don't have a pick, but I do like the over. Everybody's expecting mayhem. Cody has shown in his last 2 fights he wants to get the wrestling going. Trevor likes to wrestle too. I don't see a knockout here. I see a decision. Conrad coming in with Trevin, easy dub. Next, we got the real Tim Schafer. Garbrandt is not the same fighter. Wrestlers learn how to strike, and I think they fall in love with their knockouts, and they stop wrestling, forgetting the threat of the takedowns to set it all up. And last but not least, it's Arnold. Cody is always a wild card. However, his chin has been suspect. I hope he gets the win, but if they start swinging, he may get caught. Now, the poll results come in pretty tight on this one, a little tighter than I guessed it would have, to be honest. 54% coming in from Mr. Jones. All right, so take that for what if you will. I guess Cody had a couple fights fall out, and this is how Jones got into this position. Julio Arce and Ronnie Yaya, both not whatever happened there, just didn't work out. And what can we say? This is literally a good question mark because Cody is maybe the biggest question mark that everybody still wants to see fight. Most time when you're this big of a question mark, people don't want to see you. With all that being said, I'm going not with a whole lot of confidence. It's mainly just no confidence in Cody's chin. So Mr. Jones is my pick.
If you look at Cody's only win, it's against Sunsao. And if you watch that fight, he basically lands a haymaker.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he did in that fight. You know what I mean? It wasn't like this technical, beautiful masterclass performance, right? It was just like one shot, one kill, right? Basically. And I don't know. I think that probably did more bad than good for Cody winning like that. You know what I mean? He needed a win where he had to tough it out or battle through adversity. And he's never had that since his win against Dominic Cruz. With Jones, man, he's been through all kinds of fights, dude. He's been through all kinds of matchups, and the dude is tough. Like Adam was saying, he barely ever gets finished. You know what I mean? Like the Rakhmonov, that dude just was better that day, right, than Jones. And Jones went into that fight with some problems as well. But anyways, I think I'm gonna go with Jones in this fight, man. It's hard to bet, on Garbrandt anymore, right? And Jones, he's tough. He's got a chin. He can strike, and he's finished 2 guys like Batista, who I think he barely ever gets finished by knockout, and Aliev as well, man. It's Garbrandt, he says that he's in a different mindset and all these things, but you can say whatever you want, right? In a press conference, in an interview, you can say whatever you want. But I think in the matchup, Jones is against the wall in this fight, like completely against the wall. This is his last chance. He needs to win this fight. I think we're gonna see something similar to what like the Duplessis versus Darren Till fight. Garbrandt's in like that position, like a Darren Till position, where the UFC likes him, but he's just gonna keep losing. And I think that he's gonna lose this fight. I'm gonna take Jones. I think I'm gonna take by knockout, man. I think he's going to get a knockout in this one. I think we're going to go to the second round. I like second round knockouts for some reason. Now, let's go to the main card. Pay-per-view. Are you paying for it? Of course you are. If you support the sport, you better go pay for it. Anyways, to kick off the main card, we got a middleweight fight. Jamie Pickett versus Bo Nickal. When's the last time we saw a guy debut on a main card? CM Punk, maybe? I think CM Punk. I think that's the only guy, right? Like, we've never seen this ever, a guy debut on the main card. But hey, that's what the UFC is all about. So everybody complaining about the UFC, you're watching it, and we know what they do. You know what I mean? They want these hypes, right? And he's part of the hype. So Bo Nickal, 27 years old, 3-0 record, UFC debut. He's on a 5-fight win streak, 2-time Contender Series winner, 100% finishing rate, 1 knockout, 2 subs, 6 months between fights for him. Jamie Pickett, 34 years old, 13-8 record, 2-4 in the UFC. He's sitting on 2 straight losses. He's also a Contender Series winner from 2020. He has wins over Joseph Holmes and Loreno Starpoli. 69% finishing rate, all knockouts. 6 months between fights for him, and he is the underdog. Adam Martin, are you a believer in Bo Nickal?
Yeah, for sure. You know what's funny about this fight? So I do a podcast with Big Marcel, and we were talking, like, this was a few months ago, and I was like, you know what, Marcel, they're going to give him the worst middleweight on the roster in his debut. And I'm like, they're going to give him Jamie Pickett. And they literally booked the fight like the next day. So that was a good pick by me. I mean, come on, guys. Like, there's a reason the odds are so heavy. Pickett is just—he's not even UFC caliber. He's 2-4 in the UFC. He's been finished in 3 of those fights. And you know what? This week they were asking about him. He's like, I don't even know who Bo Nickal is. I hope he's joking because he's in a world for hurt, man. In this fight, like he's fighting an elite wrestler who is super dangerous on the ground. We've seen that in both the contenders fights, but also his other fight where he fought for Masvidal's promotion, he brutally knocked the guy out. He's got power too. Everyone's picking him to win by submission here, and I get that, right? Because it seems like a really easy path to victory. I actually think he's going to knock him out. I think he's going to go out there and knock him out, guys. That's my like bold pick in this fight. Like, it's not bold to take Nickal. He's obviously going to win the fight, but I think he's going to knock him out. And there's a lot of value on that prop too. It's a big plus number. I think he's going to put on a show here. This is a big opportunity for him to announce himself to the UFC fans, and he's going to destroy Jamie Pickett. This fight is not close. It's not competitive. Really shouldn't even be sanctioned, in my opinion. But Bo Nickal, first round stoppage, 100% is going to happen here.
JSpec.
First, I want to shout out Brianna Frost, nicknamed the First Lady. She was the first and most regular woman in our fight watch parties for the All-Star. So shout out, Bree. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to get to a couple of these comments, but I also want to say, talking with fans, I've never even considered this part as an argument or a point of view until I heard it. People upset at Bo Nickal, or maybe not Bo Nickal himself, at the rating given to Bo Nickal in the UFC video game. They're like, how is this guy 4.5-star fighter? He's never even fought in the UFC. I think that kind of just blankets across any argument you want to have with Bo Nickal. He's the promoted guy here, folks. He's the guy with the shine. He's got the company on his back, pushing him full steam ahead. All right. So comments going like this. Gonzalo says, going for the upset. Jamie gets the dub. John Davis says, Bo. Trace Picks Fight says, Nickal via sub round 1. And our boy Sicko, who's in here, says, Bo Nickal, round 1, mounted triangle. Very specific, dude. I like it. I'm not one to bring up odds frequently, but like, holy shit, I think it's like almost 2,000, negative 2,000 for Bo at this point. I mean, here's my point. I always make the joke you could take your money and turn your McDonald's money into steak and lobster money on certain odds. At this point on Pickett, you can take your McDonald's money and pay your whole damn rent with it. So I'm not playing fantasies here. Bo Nickal's getting the win. Don't mess around, man. It's all Bo Nickal here.
What's he in the poll? Was he like 95%?
I missed that. Good one. 88%, my man.
I'm surprised 12% are picking Pickett. I really am.
Yeah.
Like, other than him getting injured, I just don't see how Nickal loses the fight. I really don't. You know, I know he doesn't have much experience, but like Pickett it's not a good fighter.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bo Nickal without a doubt. I think Bo Nickal goes in there. I don't think he plays around. I don't even think he plays around on the feet. I think he goes in there and dumps Pickett on his head, and gets that wrist control and grounds and pounds him out, like from the side, just hammers him against the fence. I think that's what's gonna happen. We're gonna see. I think it doesn't even last like a minute. I think Bo Nickal doesn't waste time. I don't, because why would you waste time? Why would you risk going in there on pay-per-view on your debut with all this hype and sit there and try to trade with Jamie Pickett? Because Jamie Pickett can knock you out. It's not like he can't. You know what I mean? So I see Bo Nickal going in there, getting that TKO in the first round with that ground and pound. Because, you know, wrestlers, man, when you got a wrestler, you got to go with the wrestler half the time, right? Even in women's MMA. So
not just any wrestler though, like the most dominant wrestler in collegiate in the recent times.
Yeah, I think if he gets this win here too, like they're gonna give him a ranked opponent next fight. They're gonna fast track him up the ladder. There's no doubt about it. Like they love him. Dana White loves him. I mean, the fans are gonna love this guy. He's legit, man. He's legit. We all know that wrestling is like probably the best like martial art you can have for a dominant MMA career. And this guy has it in spades, right? So I think he's got everything that we need, but we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I mean, minus 2,000, it seems high, Rob, but I'm kind of with John. I think he makes it look really easy. Like these guys aren't paid by the hour, right? Go in there, get the job done, and you can go to the Vegas trip after and have fun.
Exactly. And hey, you never know, they might just give him Derek Brunson after this if Derek Brunson loses. That could be a possibility, right? It could be a possibility, The UFC will do what they want to do and what they need to do to build stars. The next one, man, this is a banger right here, right? You got a lightweight fight between Matisse, I don't even know how to say his name, Matisse Gamrot versus Jalen Turner. Gamrot, number 7 in the rankings, 32 years old, 21-2 record, 4-2 in the UFC. He has wins over Arman Tsarukyan, Diego Ferreira, and Jeremy Stevens. 57% finishing rate, 7 KOs, 5 subs. It's around 4 months for him between fights. He is the favorite. Jalen Turner, number 10 in the rankings, 27 years old, 13-5 record, 6-2 in the UFC, 5-fight win streak. For him, Contender Series winner all the way back in 2018, a Bellator veteran, wins over Brad Riddell, Jamie Malarkey, and Uros Medic. 100% finishing rate for him, 9 KOs, 4 subs, 8-month layoff for the man, the Tarantula, and he is sitting at the underdog position. Adam, this is a interesting one right here. What do you got?
Great fight, right? Awesome fight. Love it. Big fan of both guys, man. They're both really good fighters. Gamrot, just an exceptional grappler. Like that fight with Tsarukyan last year, like if you want to watch high level grappling, that's a fight to watch. That was ridiculous. He's looked great in the UFC, man. You know, he's got the 2 losses, but the fight with Guram, I mean, a lot of people thought he won that fight. And then Darius fight, he did lose, but it was pretty competitive. It wasn't like he got completely blown out. And Darius is 1 win away from a title shot. It's not like it's a bad loss anyway. So like the guys look good, and those are his only 2 career losses. He's won every other fight, right? Great ground game. He's got some power on the feet too. Trains at an American Top Team, so he's legit, super legit. I like Jalen Turner too, though, man. Like he's looked great in the UFC. Like came in 1-2 records first 3 fights, and then since then 5 straight wins by stoppage. Knockout power, submissions. He's huge for the division. 6'3", 77 inches for 155. It's crazy. Like same height as me, but like 100 pounds less. Guy's a monster, man. He's a beast. Don't get me wrong, he's a monster. But I just think like Gamrot is the real deal too. It's just kind of a tough fight to call, in my opinion. Like I feel like it's a very competitive fight, and Turner absolutely could win this fight because he is so dangerous and is on a nice roll right now. But I like Gamrot's wrestling too. I really like the grappling of this guy, so I'll go with Gamrot. But it's not the most confident pick on the main card. Like it's of the 5 fights, I feel like this is maybe the one I'm having the most difficulty with, just because I feel I'm a big fan of both guys. But again, the grappling is just so high level. I got to go with this guy to win the decision.
JSpec, what's the people saying?
All right. Comment from Daddy Noon says Turner gonna shock a lot of people. He's a top 4 or 5 lightweight minimum, in my opinion, and I can't beat anyone. Oh, and he can beat anyone on any given night. Saturday is his coming out party, I think. And we got Elite Savage, Oblique Kick Antonio, saying, you already know, it's tarantula season. What you may have known, maybe forgot, or didn't know in the first place, this wasn't Mr. Turner's original opponent. He was supposed to fight Mr. Dan Hooker.
Mm-hmm.
So that means Mateus Gamrot had a shortened camp, 3 weeks. Now, I'm not a professional athlete. I don't know if that's good enough. If it's gonna be all there in 3 weeks, or if not, that's up for us to see in a couple days. But that is, something to consider. I think this is really, really close. The fans also chose this to be very, very close. The result of the poll, 55% going with Mr. Gamrot. Now, I usually try to align with the fans, but Jalen Turner, 1, been a guest of our watch parties. 2, 5 inches taller, 5 inches longer reach. That's 10 inches of physical advantage. So the shortened camp, there's kind of other things going on. It makes me go tarantula. Come on, Mr. Turner.
7-inch reach advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even counting his legs, right? How much he can reach out with his legs, right? That means the tapes, the kicks. Yeah, physically, when you look at both guys, you're thinking like Turner, yeah, this guy, he can finish fights. He's long. He has all the skills to win. But I'm going on the flip side, man. I'm going with Gamrot in this one. The reason why is 2 reasons. Number 1, the pace. This man has an insane pace. Can Jalen Turner keep that pace? Because he's usually able to stay on the outside and dance around and do his thing, right? But can he keep that pace? You know who he fought that has a pretty good pace and lost to? Matt Frovella. Think about that, right? And I think Gamrot has a even more insane pace than Matt Frovella. And his grappling is just, his chain wrestling is insane. Like it's just so technical, and he knows where to be before you know where to be. And with him being much taller, I think he's going to be able to get inside and get those double underhooks, right? And get the body locks and be able to use that position really well. I see Gamrot winning with, it might not be the most exciting fight because Gamrot's going to want to stay away from danger. But I think we're going to see a wrestling clinic in this one. I think Gamrot wins by decision. That's what I'm going to pick. All right. The next fight. Man, this one is good too. Welterweight matchup between Jeff Neal and Shavkat Rakhmonov. Jeff Neal, number 7 in the rankings, 32 years old, 15-4 record, 7-2 in the UFC, sitting on 2 straight wins. Contender Series winner as well from 2017. He has wins over Vicente Luque, Santiago Ponzinibbio, and Bilal Mohammed. 73% finishing rate, 9 KOs, 2 subs, 7 months between fights, and he is the underdog. Shavkat, number 9 in the rankings, 28 years old, 16-0 record, 4-0 in the UFC. Wins over Neil Magny, Alex Oliveira, and Carlston Harris. 100% finishing rate, 8 KOs, 8 subs, 9 months between fights. Adam, this is a hard one, man. What do you got?
Is it hard? I mean, listen, I like Jeff Neal, but like I think Shavkat's the real deal, man. Like you talk about like up and coming welterweights, this guy's right there with Hamza, in my opinion. I think he's legit. 60-0, 60 finishes. Made like Neil Magny is super fucking tough. Oh, I shouldn't have swore, right? We're gonna get banned on YouTube.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, he's super tough, man, and he finished him and made it look easy. Like in the other fights too, he made them look easy. Jeff Neal is great. Don't get me wrong; he's coming off such a great win over Vicente Luque, a guy who I have a lot of respect for in a war, right? And he's looked good in the UFC, man. Other than those 2 losses to Magny and to Thompson, where he got outstruck, but he's looked great in the UFC. He's got good takedown defense too, right? Which makes it kind of interesting, but still think he gets taken down here in this fight, guys. Like I don't think Shavkat will need to stand with him. I think he's just going to wrestle him, get him to the ground, and it's been a while since Neal's been submitted. He has been submitted once in his career. It was like really early against that Martin Sano guy who's not in the UFC anymore. Like he's like Nick Diaz's friend, that guy. But he did submit him, right? All those years ago. And I just feel like that's Shavkat's best path to victory here. Another guy from Killcliff, we know all those beasts he trains with, including like Brendan Allen, who just had such a great performance last week with the submission win. He's going to get the win just like his buddy Brendan Allen did, I think, by the same method. So if he gets Jeff Neal to the ground and gets his back or neck and chokes him out here, guys, I love Shavkat in this fight. I think he gets the job done. I think he's legit. And again, you know, he's so big and tall for this division, guys. Like he's legit, and I think he's going to be fighting for the belt in the next like year or two. I really do. I don't know if he'll win the title because we'll have to see how he matches against those elite guys with their amazing wrestling skills, but I think he beats Jeff Neal. So give me Shavkat. The odds are heavy, but I expect to dominate the fight.
JSpec?
Let me share some comments. Andrew coming in with, I've said in terms of competitive fight, after every easy opponent, this will be similar to Burns and Chimaev. Not the excitement factor. Don't get carried away. Tough fight for Shavkat, but he prevails. The forward pressure will break Neal eventually. Boss coming in with, put the mortgage payment on Shavkat. Wesley coming in, boy, do I want Jeff to win though. So it looks like he's going the other way, huh? Enoch saying, I think Neal could upset here. Too big of an underdog price, in my opinion. And last but not least, Daddy Noons Forever saying, Neal is getting slept on. If I had to bet my life, I'd take Shavkat. But I have this sneaking suspicion about Neal. I really think he has the tools to get it done. Now, we got a little bit of back and forth there, but the poll is in one direction. 82% for Mr. Rakhmonov. All right. And I think a lot of people felt that way when I was poking around trying to get reactions. There's a lot of Shavkat fans, a lot of Shavkat support. It's not like a fade against Neal. It's just Shavkat's in a moment right now. If you want to do MMA math, they both fought Neil Magny. Shavkat beat Neil Magny. Jeff lost. So there you go. And my pick for this is Rakhmonov, man. And he's not one of those mystery undefeated fighters. You know, he's proven it in front of our face. He's doing it right now. Until he proves otherwise or something else happens, man, I can't fade him. I can't even come up with even a partial argument why I would fade him. So and I really like his hats, dude. Like I want one. So give me Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Man, if you look at Jeff Neal's run, right? He's got win over Vasily Luki, striker. Ponzinibbio, striker. Mike Perry, striker. Nickal Price, pretty much a striker. Bilal Muhammad, we're talking about 2019 Bilal Muhammad, kind of a striker, right? Now he's a little bit different. He wrestles a little bit more. Probably a much better wrestler now than he was back then. He hasn't faced a guy like this, right? I just don't think the skill set, like the skill level. Rakhmonov he's an anomaly, man. Like he can do everything. He's like a 5-tool fighter. He could do everything. He can submit you. He could knock you out. He could strike with you. He could grapple with you. He could wrestle with you. We've never seen him tired, right? Like you never seen him like, oh, he looks tired or he's breathing. You don't see that from him. And we've seen Jeff Neal get beat up in there, right? We've seen it. We've seen him. I don't know if he broke, but we've seen him get beat up. And we haven't seen Shavkat get beat up or anything like that. Not even close. I think Shavkat goes in there and he uses that superior wrestling. I think this is a big spot for him, and he understands that as well, right? On a pay-per-view, a John Jones card, a Shevchenko card, there's going to be a lot of eyes on him. And if he beats Neal, he's going to get on that rocket ship as well, right, in that division, because Kazakhstan, that's a good market for them. You know what I mean? They were going to go to Kazakhstan. The UFC was going to go to them before the pandemic. It was like the first event, like, after the pandemic started, that they were going to go there, and then they canceled that show, right? So I'm taking Rakhmonov in this one. I think that Rakhmonov goes to the ground. I think he submits him, and I think he submits him in the second round. I think the fight goes a little longer than the first. Now, let's move on to the co-main event of this card, of this pay-per-view, UFC 285. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, and make your picks. The picks option is on the screen. I'm using the app right now, and here we go. Women's flyweight title fight between Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso. Shevchenko, 34 years old, 23-3 record, 12-2 in the UFC, sitting 9 fights win streak. Title fight finishes over Lauren Murphy, Jessica Andrade, Caitlin Chukagian, Jessica I. 65% finishing rate, 8 KOs, 7 submissions, and she's sitting on a 9-month layoff. Alexa Grasso, number 6 in the rankings, 29 years old, 15-3 record, 7-3 in the UFC, 4-fight win streak for her. Wins over Viviana Araujo, Joanna Calderwood or Joanna Wood, and Carolina Kolokiewicz. 33% finishing rate, 4 knockouts, 1 sub, 5 months between fights for her. And of course, understandably, she's sitting as the underdog in this fight. Adam, do you see an upset?
No. No. You know, and the other thing is, like, it's not like Alexa is new to the UFC. Like, Valentina joined the UFC in 2015. Alexa's been in the UFC since 2016. She's been around for a long time, too. It's not like she's new. Like, she's new to the division, right? And she's looked better at 125. I do think she was probably cutting a lot of weight to make 115, but now she goes in here as Valentina. It's just such a hard fight for anyone. I will say that I thought Valentina did lose to Santos, right? But that's because of the grappling. I don't think Grasso presents that threat at all, guys. Like, her grapplings look better at 125. I'll give her that, but I just don't think there's any threat of the grappling here. It's gonna, if she stays on the feet with her, and Shevchenko, I think it's probably the better striker overall. Mixes in the kicks with the punches, whereas Grasso is pretty much just a boxer. But I just feel like Valentina can take her down whenever she wants to, get her to the ground. And again, at flyweight, Grasso's looked better with the grappling. But you remember when she fought at 115, like Suarez, how did she beat her? Took her down. Esparza took her down. I think Valentina, like, she's a smart fighter, right? Like, her IQ is about like as high as it gets in the sport. I don't even think she's going to try to stand with her, and if she doesn't have to. She'll get takedowns. For me, it's like, the question is, it's not like who wins, because I'm confident Valentina wins. It's just, does she win by stoppage or decision? Leaning a little bit towards the decision, just because Grasso is very durable and only been finished the one time. So maybe that's the way to go here. But regardless, like, I don't see Valentina losing this fight. I'm more interested in seeing her fight like Blanchfield. I think that's a tougher, more interesting fight because of the grappling, right? But yeah, I think she wins this fight, guys, and defends her belt once again.
JSpec.
Shout out to one of those comments you had down there. That's Turtle301 is Andrew, another staple in our watch parties. We got room for everybody, y'all. Come and join us. We love you. All right, so here's a comment from Inoch. Bullet wasn't at her best last time out. I don't see that happening next time out, which would be this time, right? Sickle, zero logic, all hard on this pick, and his pick is a nice picture of Alexa Grasso. Chief, the second, simply the bullet. All right. MMA in the jungle, Valentina getting the win over Grasso is 60-40. That's closer than I think other people feel. It's actually Arnold, Valentina by second round TKO. And last but not least, Spawn. I like Alexa. I respect her skill. Unfortunately, I'll go out on I'll go out looking dumb if I think Shevchenko loses. I don't think Shevchenko loses to Grasso here either. But side note, Shevchenko training in Japan for this one in Tokyo. So that's cool. I don't know what that really leads up to. I spent some time in Japan and I felt like I developed internally and as a person. So maybe she is too. That'd be cool. Listen, until we see the Blanchfield fight or whatever in the future, I just think it's gonna be a long reign for the queen. All right, just get ready, folks. Strap in. She's getting all the rubies on the belt. It's the Queen Shevchenko era, folks. Just strap in and just enjoy the show. Shevchenko is my pick.
I was in Singapore watching that fight against Santos, and I thought she lost that fight as well. And I was there live watching, you know what I mean? And she got away, you know what I mean? Sometimes in this sport, you get away. GSP is known to have done that a time, right? So, you know, sometimes fights are so close, man, and judges don't know what they're doing. And they give the decision to the champion. So she got away with it. And I think because of that, I think Shevchenko knows that. Like, Shevchenko is a very cerebral fighter. She understands, like, like that fight was just too close. I can't have that anymore. I think she comes in here like a maniac. I think she comes in here like a maniac, to just like a Terminator. And she just terminates Grasso in this fight. Because let's be realistic. They want Grasso in this position because they want to get into Latin America. They're building the PI in Mexico City. There's like a lot to that, right? There's a lot to why Grasso's in this position. You know, did she earn this spot? There's a lot of other girls that could have fought for the title, right? I'm just going to put it out there. But, you know, she's available. You know, everything is about timing, but it's a bad time for her. I think Valentina is going to go in there and she's going to use everything that she can to finish this fight. I'm picking Valentina, man. It's going to be hard to see Grasso win. And if she does win, if she pulls out a crazy, like, I don't know, maybe Shevchenko twists her knee and she, you know, breaks her MCL. I don't know, man. Anything could happen. But, you know, other than that, I just see Valentina just going in there and cruising. And I think she gets a TKO. I think she gets like a standing TKO. I think Valentina volumes the shit out of her. I think they're gonna get into like the fourth round, and I think that's when the stoppage will happen. TKO standing in the fourth round, striking. Because if you look at Grasso in her last couple of fights, she hasn't really grappled. Not much, man. Like, she's really developed into her boxing, and she's really fell in love with that. And this is the wrong time to fall in love with your boxing against someone like Valentina Shevchenko. Is probably one of the greatest strikers we've ever seen in the octagon. Now, let's move on to the main event, the return of John Bones Jones for the vacant heavyweight title. John Jones. He's 35 years old now. It's crazy because I've been watching this sport, and I remember when John Jones was like in his early 20s, right? And you're just thinking, like, what the hell would happen to the time, right? John Jones is 35 years old. But I think it's the perfect time for him to become a heavyweight, because heavyweights, they usually don't become a prime version of themselves until later in their 30s. 26-1 record for him, 20-1 in the UFC, 1 no contest, 17 fight win streak. In title fight finishes, he has finishes over Gustafsson, Cormier, Belfort, TRT Belfort. Think about it. TRT, he finished TRT Belfort. And of course, Chael Sonnen. 62% finishing rate, 10 KOs, 6 subs, 37 months. We haven't seen him fight. 37 months. Ciryl Gane, number 1 in the rankings, 32 years old, 11-1 record, 8-1 in the UFC. He has wins over Derek Lewis, Tai Tuivasa, and Jairzinho Rosenstrike. 73% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 3 subs, and 6 months between fights for him. And of course, I don't even know if it's of course, but he's just the underdog in this fight. Adam, man, what do you see in this one?
I think you're going to see like really strong opinions on both sides of this fight, guys. It's just one of those fights that's kind of like polarizing. Like you're going to see people that are like 100% confident Jones wins, and the flip side, you'll see people that are confident Gane wins. I think it's just an amazing fight. Like I really love this matchup. So let's start with Jones. To me, greatest fighter I've ever seen personally. I think he's the greatest natural talent we've ever seen in MMA. And you talk about that run he went on, John. Like the crazy thing is, it's like 12, 13 years ago now. Really think about it. Like those wins over like Shogun, Rampage, Machado. I was at a bunch of those fights too. He fought in Toronto like I want to say 4 times. I saw him fight Machado, choked him out. I saw him fight Belfort where he submitted him. I saw him fight Gus when he had the fight of the century really against Gus in the first one. That was so long ago now. Like that Gustin fight was 10 years ago, which is insane, right? Like where's the time go? Over the last couple of years, hasn't fought in 3 years now. And, quite frankly, I don't think he looked the same in the last couple of fights we did see him. Like the Reyes fight and the Santos fight, they really could have gone either way, guys. Like they weren't dominant wins. They weren't like at the beginning of his career. So it looked like he was on a bit of a decline. Now he's moving up in weight. It's interesting, right? Like, we'll see. I mean, he's obviously the greatest light heavyweight of all time, but how is he going to do it heavyweight? It's a brand new weight class. If anyone can move up in weight and do well, it's probably a guy like Jon Jones, who again is just like such a freak athlete and a natural talent. But at the same time, he goes in there against a guy like Ciryl Gane, who's a great fighter in his own right. Like, and again, you talk about naturals in the sport. Ciryl Gane's only been in the UFC he's not even been in it for 4 years. Like, yet, this is like 3.5 years, and he's fighting for the belt for a second time now. And man, he's a special fighter too. Like, honestly, like I wouldn't say like they have the similar style, but like he reminds me of Jones in that he's just really picked up the complete MMA game so quickly. Like, comes in there to the UFC, he had those finishes on the ground, and now obviously we've seen the striking in the last couple of fights, especially. He can stand and trade. And here's the thing, like with Gane, right? Like at light heavyweight, Jones, what was one of the biggest advantages he had there? It was the height and reach. Against Gane, you mentioned, John, like the height's the same. The reach is 3.5 inches, so it's a slight advantage for Jones, but it's not like 10 inches or whatever it was against DC. Maybe it was even more. I'm going to double check. DC had 72 inch reach, so it was 12.5 inch reach advantage. I mean, that's a big difference, right? To 3.5. You saw him when he fought like a guy like Reyes or Santos. Like those guys were pretty long, and he had a bit of trouble with those guys. Another thing is, like, again, just a long layoff. Like 3.5 years is a long time to be away. Or it's not 3.5, it's like three years and a month, right? 37 months. 37 months, you said, John. I think that's right. So it's a long time to be away, and we just don't have any information about how he looks at heavyweight. We've seen the pictures. We saw him at the press conference. He looks big. He looks strong. But how does it translate to the fight? I don't know. It's interesting because Gane opened as the favorite here, and obviously it's been bet the other way. Jon Jones is the favorite now, and he's obviously super popular. Like you said, John, he'll be the favorite come Saturday. I don't know though, man. I really don't know. I've never. Here's the crazy thing about this fight is I've never picked against either guy. I picked them to win all of their fights in the UFC, both of them. So I've got Jon Jones every fight right, except for the Matt Hamill fight, which let's be honest, he should have won that fight. And then with Gane, I picked him to beat Nagano. I'm pretty sure I picked him to win that fight. He lost pretty close decision. He made a mistake in the 5th round and lost. You would hope he learns from that. I think everyone's expecting Jon just to take him down really easily and kind of wrestle him in this fight. I just feel like Gane, again, he's just a guy that can improve really quickly. And I feel like, yeah, the fight was a year ago, but I think he can get better with the wrestling since then. And on the feet, I feel like he can give Jon problems. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting fight, man. But I just feel a little better about Gane here because of the activity. He's fought since Jones's last fight. He's had 6 fights. He's got a lot of experience since then fighting the best guys in the heavyweight division. He's a former interim champion himself. I feel a little better about Gane here. So even though he's the underdog, I'm going to pick Gane. And it's crazy going against Jon Jones, but I just have too many question marks about him, guys. So I'll go with Gane.
JSpec.
All right, let me go through the list of comments of people who really were into this one.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny Bones Jones gets the TKO in the 3rd round. The GOAT is inevitable. All right, and that was from Austin. Shirt Guy Lee says, this must be the first Jon Jones fight in a long time where we don't have to worry about USADA. All right, Big Frank, Jon Jones beats Gane in almost every aspect, in my opinion. He dissects every position. I have feelings Jones will outclass him and get it done. Brianna Frost, think I'm the only one voting for Gane, but it's only because I'm biased due to Jones' personal life. I'm eager to see Jones fight because I'm not too familiar with his style, being that he's a heavyweight now, and he's just got so much God-given talent. I'm very excited to see the outcome. My head says Jones, my heart says Gane. And if I had to pick an outcome, it would be KO, either second or third round. Leon, last but not least, John Bones will kick his legs, then take him down. Third round TKO. And the poll results, I thought it was going to be closer than this. Maybe it's the John Jones factor affecting this poll. 69% siding with, the former light heavyweight champ. And I see why. There's so many good reasons, GOAT argument, light heavyweight and all that. Me personally, let's pretend like we're not talking about John Jones. Let's just pretend we're talking about Bon Bones, right? If that was the case, you would never go, hey, a guy that just hasn't fought for 3 years and then jumped a weight class. I always talk about jumping weight classes and fighting and how tough it is, especially, in my opinion, the hardest one is middleweight to light heavyweight. This is worse. This is worse than that. So these are a lot of problems and against a guy who's just really, truly a natural heavyweight. There's no other weight class Gane could fight in, and he's pretty good there too. If I was going to throw a little bit of shade, both guys use the same technique for defense. What is that? Turning 180 and running from your opponent. It's really hard to get hit when you run full sprint in the opposite direction. But man, all things considered, it's tough. It's really tough. I'm not even really confident in this. I reluctantly go Ciryl Gane.
Oh,
man. John Bones Jones. I'm going with Jones, man. I can't bet against him. And I think, people they're looking at his body, right? And they're like, what? They expected him to be like some Greek god at heavyweight, right? I'm just like, if you're not on the juice, you know what I mean? And you're gaining weight, that's what your body's going to look like at heavyweight. He's not a natural heavyweight, right? Not yet. He has to build into it. It looks like he needs more than 3 years, but still, I think he just has the skills, man. And I feel like the last couple of fights that he had were uninspired, and he still won. And we've known that in the past from him. He was doing cocaine and still beating DC, right? Like, DC is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and that was the prime DC, and he beat him on cocaine, right? Like, now Jones is, I call this Jones Pastor Jones. Like, he's the guy that's going to want to help the community, and he like got rid of all the bad friends and all. Oh, I think that's what's happening with Jones. I think this is the new stage of his career where he becomes the Mr. Rogers version of Jones, but he's still the same fighter, right? And I think he goes in there and he uses skill. I don't think we see the best John Jones at heavyweight in this fight, but I think his skills and his experience are going to shine in this fight, and he's going to beat Ciryl Gane with that. He's not going to beat him because he's the best John Bones at heavyweight. I think he's just going to see him because he's just more skilled and he's just more experienced. That's it. That's all. I think he goes in there and he plays around on the feet with him like he does with every fighter that he faces. But then eventually he's going to have to mix in that wrestling because he knows that he's going to have to win this fight with what he's strong at, right? And his mind is very strong, and he's very good at adjusting his game plan to win fights. And we've seen it in the past. I think we're going to see it in this fight. I'm taking John Bones Jones in this one. I think he knocks him out. I think it's going to be not a knockout on the feet. I think he finishes him on the ground. And I'm going to go with let's say third round against Ciryl Gane. There we go. Okay. There you go. There's my picks right there, man. It's a pretty insane card, and I'm gonna be watching it from the first fight to the last fight, no matter what. Thank you everybody for joining us live. If you're watching the replay, just leave your comments at the bottom, and then we'll get to those comments, and yeah, leave your picks. We're building the community for the AllStar. Download the AllStar app, get on the picks, play against me, play against JSpec, join the community, and we'll be back next week for next week's card, breaking it down just like we did for UFC 285. And I'll see you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. Peace.